And I know that prayer really works. Prayer heals. Prayer is a salve. Prayer has been my teacher and my guidance through every adventure that I've had. Prayer has been how I've traveled all over the world. And sharing that now more than ever is why I said, I got to get this out now, looking at current events, these natural disasters. And people are looking for something that they can I need something right now. And I said, let me get these prayers out. Let me get these little spells out. And that's how it was born.
You are listening to The Creative Imposter, episode number 52. Welcome to The Creative Imposter. I'm Andrea Klunder, your host. And if you are listening to this episode the day it drops, boo! Happy Halloween! Just in time for Halloween today, I am talking with tarot life coach Tonya Gonzalez of Woo Witchcraft. And this episode is probably going to give you chills in like 5 different ways. Tonya is somebody who I have been following on Facebook for quite a while. And as you'll hear in the beginning of our conversation, I couldn't quite place even how we first met, but it's a little bit magical and a little bit mystical. I think you're going to like it. If you listen back to episode 50 of The Creative Imposter with Katie Flatto of Mindful You, you will hear me making fun of different types of coaching that have popped up, like getting your yoga life coach certification in a year. And I don't want you to mistake that with what Tonya does, because I really love what she's up to. With over 2 decades of study, Tonya brings her gifts of clairvoyance, mediumship, energy healing, and crystal therapy together with her love of tarot and oracle cards. She is going to share with us the incredible story. Seriously, I was listening to it with my jaw dropped the entire time, of how she went from waiting and bussing tables in Key West to being an international television star in Kiev, Ukraine, and being voted the number 3 psychic in the world on one of Ukraine's most popular Sunday evening primetime television shows. We're also talking about how you can incorporate a little bit of witchcraft into your day-to-day. And Tonya gives me a live tarot reading about money on the episode. I can't wait for you to meet the fabulous Tonya Gonzalez. Here's our conversation.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for having me. It is such a pleasure to reconnect to you after all these years.
I know. I don't even actually remember how we first met. I know that it was at the time that I had a yoga studio and spa, which I do not have any longer.
That's funny, Andrea, because I don't remember either. I was like, how did we meet? And I have to say, I think it was Jessica Hine that introduced us with Choose Chicago, perhaps?
Oh, maybe. Wow, that is like reaching way
back
into the past.
I think it had to be like 2010, 2011 maybe. So it's been quite a few years. Since then, I don't know if you know, if it was Jessica, which is our connection, which I think it was, because I'm feeling intuitively that it was.
I do.
She passed away. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. So then it is Jessica.
Felt like a really emotional, even though we weren't very close, it just felt like such an emotional transition.
It really was. Like I said, all of a sudden I knew exactly how we met. Like Jessica, her energy just really came in and told me that. And I have to tell you, her husband and I are very close, and we, are very connected. And so he'll be happy to know that that is how she came through for me today. So I have to tell you, there was a reason, obviously, she wanted you and I to connect. So I'm grateful for that. And I love that. I love that that was how we both were able to remember how we were connected, was through beautiful spirit,
Yeah.
That's how spirit works.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So let us talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, speaking of spirit and guidance, and what you are most excited about in your life and business right now.
Okay. So, it's such an interesting journey, I have to say. I never in a million years would have thought that my tarot deck would take me all around the world, Andrea. And so I started in a coffee shop, in Oak Park. And I was a yoga teacher then. And I think that's also how we were able to connect, because all of us were into yoga and everything. Mm-hmm. And we still are, I know, but the early days. And so I was teaching yoga classes and doing tarot and spiritual coaching on the side. And so I finally blended those into tarot life coach. And again, I had been just doing tarot readings for people. And then I started a YouTube channel, and then I joined someone else's radio show. Then I started my own radio show. And then in the middle of me doing all of that, I had lived in Spain. I had been living in Madrid, and I had come back to the United States. And I said, oh my gosh, it's so cold in Chicago. And I was like, this is not where I want to be. I'm ready to spread my wings. And I was guided to Key West. And this was in 2012. So this was January of 2012. And I was working as a waitress, a hostess, and a busboy. Now, the thing about that was, here I was walking into Blue Heaven, which is one of the best restaurants in Key West. It used to be when I was there in 2012. And I was like, I'm going to get a server job. I've always been a waitress. I can do this. And they had nothing. And they were like, we do have an opening for a busboy. And I was like, I'll take it. And they were like, what? Here I am, 40 years old. I'm a bronze bruja and a master's degree, with the library science. And they're like, are you sure? They interviewed me twice. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take it. Let's do this. But the thing was, I said, I'm a spiritual counselor. So my real work is that. I'll do this. And I did that. And I worked those 3 jobs, kept my clients, and still did my radio show when I got an email from Kiev, Ukraine. And I had been working at the Southernmost Beach Cafe. I was working at Blue Heaven and Southernmost Beach Cafe at that time. I really was working a lot, of course, because it's an expensive lifestyle. And so I got this email from Kiev, and I just happened to have international people living down there in Key West. And one of the girls was Russian. And I said, what is this? And she was like, Tonya, this is the International Psychic Challenge. They're inviting you. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? You've got to be kidding. And I was like, okay, if this is serious, if this isn't spam, tell them to call me. And in 5 minutes, they called me. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? And we would like to invite you to participate in our International Psychic Challenge here in Kiev, Ukraine. And I said, are you kidding me? I said, if you're not, and they said, we'll send you a ticket and everything. And so, of course, when I'm in my waitressing uniform, it's the morning shift. So it's sometime between 7 and 10. Mm-hmm. I start telling everybody, oh my God, I got picked to go participate in this TV show. Nobody, of course, can believe me. Then the negative stories come. Oh my God, they're going to sell you in the sex slave. Didn't you see Taken? Oh my God, this is a scam. They're going to, sell your organs. They're going to cut you open. You're exotic over there. And I was terrified. I was like, do I go by myself in a foreign country? Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But something deep inside me said, go. Something deep inside when I said, can you guys wait for me? Can you hold my job? And they're like, no. And I was like, all right, I quit. Something told me that this was going to change my life. And I was terrified. My birthday was coming up. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I went. And, they loved me. And they said, we'd love for you to come back. And I was like, what? You want me to come here and stay here until you don't know how long? And I was like, Key West, Kiev, Key West, Kiev. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. And so I packed up, gave away, and went from Key West to Kiev, Ukraine. And I was there for 8 months. And I ended up going through so many trials and tribulations. I had never known the energy of the Russian and Ukrainian people, but my name is actually Russian derived. And this is the most interesting thing. My great grandmother, who lived in New York, and we don't know much about her and her story either, but her best friend was a Russian woman. And she had told my mother when she was pregnant, if that's a girl, you name her Tonya. That is, a strong Russian name. And she's going to be a strong woman. And so my mother, again, wanting approval from her grandmother, she named me Tonya. And that really connected me to the Russian and Ukrainian people because it is a very common name in Russia and in Ukraine, and it's short for Antonina. And so I went on in this was their 11th season of doing this psychic battle, and I came in and was voted number 3 psychic in the world. So I went from coffee shop in 2009, really when I came out with my brand, a tarot life coach, to TV star in Europe in 3 years.
Okay, so what does a psychic challenge consist of? Like, what kinds of things did they have you do?
You know what, Andrea? I had no idea what I was going to be faced with. I'll tell you what, the first day, again, I had no idea. So I was, in beach shorts and like, what's going on? Because it was hot. It was incredibly hot. It was July. And they take us to this place, and there's thousands of people trying out for this show. I had no idea. And because all of it was in Russian, when I tried to Google it, I couldn't find anything. I was like excited and terrified at the same time. I had no idea of knowing how big the show was until we started. Once they narrowed down who they wanted to pick and be on the show, I had no idea. It was the biggest, it was the best watched show every Sunday night. We had between 8 and 10 p.m. And because I lived in the city and I was a city loving girl at that time, I was all over Kiev. So people would spot me and, oh my God, want my autograph and all kinds of things. I had to have a driver because they were afraid I was going to get kidnapped. It was an adventure. But the psychic challenges, let me go back to that, were people who had lost someone, people who had family members who had been gone or had been murdered. They were not, fluffy stories. These were people who were going through some tragedies. There was this one woman who had over 5 miscarriages and thought that there was a curse on her and her family. And I ended up helping her in that. Also, one of the episodes that I had been crowned Psychic of the Week was the most interesting experience of my life. There was a group of people. They were from all over the world, and each of them had the same thing. What was it? And everyone's looking at their body. We couldn't talk to them. They, just again, what do you feel? And I remember very specifically and saying, I was like, I feel like there's something inside their body that is just switched. It's not where it's supposed to be. And that is exactly what it was. And I had never met anyone like that. So their heart was on the other side. It was on the right side instead of the left. And there was, again, these people they flew these people from all over the world because they all had that in common, that they had their heart on the right side instead of on the left.
That's wild.
Yeah. In one of the finale episodes, they had us decipher a code and we were racing against the clock and supposedly something was going to detonate. It was a very interesting because it was high drama. Again, it was in prime time and it had over 33 million viewers every Sunday. Like I said, it was one of their most watched shows. The channel is STB and they have, the cooking shows. At that time, they had everything that was going on here in the U.S., they had the opposite, a dating show, the reality shows of dating and living in the house. They had all of these different shows. And so it was, like I said, to go from waitressing and, and bussing tables to TV star was, again, it was such, and that's why I love what your interview is about that imposter, because I really had to look at my ego. Seriously, I had seen people were cutthroat trying to win, trying to be number one. And I had seen people behaving so badly. I said, Goddess, angels, whoever, ancestors, please hold me in my space because I do not want this to go to my head. And it was at that time that I blossomed the most. And I actually felt like I was an imposter because I was like, there's no way I know this. And I wasn't using my tarot cards. I really was just allowing my true energy to come through. And again, because I wasn't using props and things, because Andrea, there were people with snakes. Some people were into Egyptian magic. Some people were into voodoo and voodoo. And there was seriously people of every walk of life, every religion and of every kind of ethnicity that you could think of that were psychic that I was up against. So it started out with thousands. It narrowed down to 200. Then it went down to 50. Then it was 20. Then it was 12. Then it was 6. and then it was 4.
Wow.
And then it was 3. And it was really the most exciting and frightening experiences of my life.
So what tools do you typically use in your work? And then why did you decide for that experience not to use them?
Well, I did use crystals.
Okay.
I use crystals, and I love crystals. I actually have my selenite and quite a few crystals next to me. And because crystals come from the earth and they have that element of grounding, and each crystal carry their own energy frequency. Like the one I'm holding right now is selenite. And selenite is the cleanser of all things. And so I've cleansed the room, I've cleansed our conversation, I've cleansed the phone, the tarot deck and everything. And so again, it's also an energy amplifier. That way our energy is connected. And because again, used through the phone, when I'm connecting to people spiritually, it's like a conductor. I pick up your energy, you're feeling mine when I'm sending you healing. And so crystals are like that energy conductor, because most people tell me they feel the energy shift after our time together. And then I also use oils. And last year I was lucky enough to meet an amazing aromatherapist and create a line of chakra oils. And so right before I can connect with someone in an interview or with a client, I love to use throat chakra oil. Again, because to have open and clear and authentic communication, we forget our truth comes through our throat, through our body. And sometimes, the energy, again, if the ego gets involved to, tell that little white lie, or, elaborate a little more, or to be an imposter, for instance, and, connecting to the chakras and just, again, setting the intention and using the oils of saying, I will speak with confidence, clarity, and authenticity. It is done. And so using oils is one of my favorite things. And then just, I have my incense, I do a little prayer, and, connecting to the energies around me, the energies around you, to just really fully connect our space. And so those are some of the tools. And the reason I chose not to use them in the show is because, again, I didn't want it to come from my ego. I wanted it all to come from my heart. And I knew if I allowed myself to just be with the people in front of me instead of using my tarot cards, it would allow that authenticity and that truth and that divine connection to come through. And I believe that is what, the people saw and why they voted for me, because there was an episode where we had to be voted for. Some people were voted off of the show. And so I was voted to that position. And so I think it, again, was my name connection to that energy of Eastern Europe and my authenticity. And again, being so focused on connecting to my spirit and not getting caught up in, you're a TV star game. It was a practice in humility, and more than anything, staying grounded in Tonya and not getting caught in the hype. I saw people doing very cutthroat things, and I said, that is not me. And it was then that I had a very divine experience. I started having these dreams about this golden winged angel, and I was like, what is that? What is that? And I shared it with one of my friends, and he said, oh my God, that's Archangel Michael. He is the patron saint of Kiev. And I said, oh my God. And really, since then, I have family there now. The people that I connected to are my family. I love them. They love me. And when I was living in Miami, I actually did have some people from Kiev come and visit me. I have quite a few, many Russian and Ukrainian friends all over the world. And so it opened so many doors, Andrea. It allowed me to fully be the international psychic and spiritual teacher that I always said I wanted to be. And so I know dreams come true. And all of that at the age of 40.
That's so beautiful. I know that since you've been back, you have some new things that you have recently launched, which is actually after following you on Facebook for forever, basically. And I was thinking, who am I going to interview for this series on coaching? And something popped up. I was really planning everything out, and I scrolled through Facebook and something popped up about the Little Book of Woo Woo. Can you tell me about that?
Oh, yeah. So the Little Book of Woo Woo, I'm a writer. I love to write. And my degree is in English and creative writing, but it's also in women's studies. And so since I was a single mother myself, and I was raised by a single mother, it was always for me to serve women because, again, that's what I was energetically connected to. And so the little book of woo woo is because I know we all need something, and everybody's reading books and everyone needs some spiritual guidance and some spiritual practice. And I said, instead of writing some big tome of all my amazingness, or wanting to write this big book, I said, you know what? I want to write little books because people are writing, need little bite-sized things. They need stuff that they can do right now. And then something just told me, start sharing everything that you do. Everything that you do. I said, everything I do? And, this was my voice. And it was like, yeah. And so it came in a download, like the little book of woo woo. And we've even got the next one already. We were talking about it just now. I just launched this one, the little book of woo woo, of prayers, incantations, and spells. And it's about loot, love, and life. And I know that prayer really works. Prayer heals. Prayer is a salve. Prayer has been my teacher and my guidance through every adventure that I've had. Prayer has been how I've traveled all over the world, and sharing that now more than ever is why I said, I got to get this out now, looking at current events, these natural disasters, and people are looking for something that they can I need something right now. And I said, let me get these prayers out. Let me get these little spells out. And that's how it was born. And I see this as a series of books because the next one is Wild Women and moon cycles. And it's really going to talk about our moon cycles, our menses, and all these different things that women want to know this stuff. And I want to connect to it through spirituality instead of some, other energy, because we judge ourselves and our bodies so harshly. So these little books are really the big book I wanted to write, but in little bitty chunks. And it's the prayers that I want to share. Like right now, one of the prayers that I have about prosperity is the release my fear prayer, and the power of being and knowing you are unlimited, and then there's another spell that I share as the heal me spell, the sweet forgiveness spell. And then there's the lead me prayers, and then there's purification bath. And again, these are just things that people can use because that is what I'm feeling that is being asked for. How can I heal myself? How can I discover my magic? How can I use my magic? Where is my magic, And that's what created this. And that's really what the whole woo-woo for me is, because to me, woo-woo is my spirituality. It's my connection to the goddess, connection to the planets, connection to my body, connection to other women, connection to the crystals. It's connection to my ancestors and all of our sisters. I believe that all women are inherently brujas and witches because we are the reincarnated women that were burned at the stake, and which is why most of us are drawn to it or are afraid of it, because we remember being burned for our power. And that's why it is so important for us now to empower ourselves. That's why Mama Earth is awakening now, because she's done with the imposter of the patriarchy running things. Because before it was the goddess. And then Christianity came and turned it all upside down. So it's deeper. It's much deeper for me to share the prayers and these spells and things like that.
I love a couple of things that you just said that make me want to talk to you for like 5 hours for this interview.
Awesome.
And one of them is this idea that some of these natural disasters and like really big, literally earth-shaking things that are happening in our world right now that has put a lot of fear. I think a lot of people are responding with fear. And it's almost like, every morning I wake up and I look online, it's like some new disaster is happening, right?
It is. It's getting intense.
It's getting really intense. And I think what I heard you say is reframing this as like a reawakening or a realigning of the earth back to like the feminine energy. And back into the goddess, goddess energy.
This is the whole movement with the food, with the breastfeeding, with the women's, reproductive rights. This is all of this energy, the nurturing and the love. This is what we're seeing right now in Puerto Rico. What do they need? They need money. They need love. They need prayer. They need support. They need to know that they are not left alone, right? And again, we live in this world of 99 and 1%. The 99% is love, is forgiveness, is healing, is, vibration. The 1% is this reality. And it's that 1% that we spend all of our time in, but we say we want love. I'll give you an example. It's like women who say, oh, I want love, I want love, I want love, and then meet someone, I'm not attracted to him. They confuse love with attraction. Do you see? And as soon as you say you want love and, then, oh, I'm not attracted to him. I said, oh, I thought you said you wanted love. And again, it's not about that you can't have both. But if you say you want love, that is in the 99% world. Attraction is in the 1, because that's visceral. That's visceral. That comes through the body. Feelings, again, like blind people, they sense, they know, we know. We've been trained now to look, to see outside of ourselves. And that's what we spend all of our time doing in the 1% world. And so this reawakening of the feminine energy, which is why we were all so hopeful about Hillary Clinton, is showing you that that is where it's at. Women are ready to speak their voices, raise their voices, lift their voices, because we've been quiet for too long. We're ready to stop the destruction of the world. We're ready to heal these conversations around money and finances. We're ready to heal these conversations about having your period. It is a part of our life. Please deal with it. You look at it, understand it. It's not going away. And it doesn't make us evil and bad, And so there's just all these other energies that we have to come, because the patriarchy is not working. We have raped, stripped, and bared our lands, that this global warming is true. It is absolutely happening. That's why these outward expressions of Mama Earth is saying, wake up. I am grumbling with anger. I am grumbling with frustration. Stop. And it is Mother Earth, again, Mother Earth, who is connected to Mother? Women. So we are, even the Dalai Lama himself said, it will be a Western woman who heals the world. And it can be any of us. Any of us at any time can be that one Western woman. And you know how it's going to heal? It's through love, because none of that other stuff matters. Those people in Puerto Rico right now, in Mexico City, they want love, but we've made it about money. They need to know that they are supported and that they are lifted, and through the rocks and through the loss that they've suffered, that they are loved. Because as a coach, that's the number one thing that I work, it's childhood traumas that are about lack of love, or limited love, or bounded love, or binded love, or restricted love.
And so now that you are talking about love and finance and money, do we have time for you to do a short reading for me?
Absolutely. I would love to. I've got my tarot cards. Like, I always keep my tarot cards handy. And, I always tell people this, when I think about it, and I still use the same deck that I used in the coffee shop.
Okay.
And I always say, this is the tarot deck that took me around the world. This 78 cards. And so it is my honor to always shuffle it up and share it with someone. So thank you for giving me an opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm sensing for you is this is definitely something related to the past. And this is financially about a past failure that you haven't quite let go of. And that story and that fear and that money story is keeping you from looking at the different money story that is wanting to emerge from within you. So I see that this is about really cutting out a lot of extra. I see you might be purging, cleansing, giving away things. I also feel that you're going kind of through this evolution of shedding weight, even, losing literal weight, even ending some relationships. So I feel like you're going through a purging process right now, and actually having your own personal money evolution, because I get the 6 of Rods, and that's telling me you're going in the right direction. And with that, then it's the 9 of Swords. So in the 9 of Swords, it's telling me that you're at the end of a cycle. So you are going in that new direction. However, it has been a challenge and struggle, and now you're coming through on the other side. And I'll pick last card. And it's perfect. It's the 10 of Cups. And so what that's telling me is that, yes, beloved, you are going in the right direction. You are going to have the happy family energy and that emotional fulfillment that you're asking for. Just keep going. I know it seems hard and it seems long, but just keep going. It is coming. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
And I definitely, it comes back to these stories that we tell ourselves, right? About who we are based on what has happened. And
Yes.
I'm well aware of that and the big financial failure. And just for the listeners, I had specifically asked Tonya to do a money related reading for me. But that failure, which also my listeners know well because I've talked about it on the show here, is the yoga studio business that I had when you and I first met. And
Mm-hmm.
it is sort of like one of those things where it's like intellectually, I feel like I've let it go. And intellectually, I understand that just because that doesn't mean that that is the only reality that exists, or that is my destiny, or that is my future. But man, can it be so hard to like fully shed? I like this idea that you said of like shedding extra weight and purging to like
Yes.
really get it
Mm-hmm.
out of your system. I mean, what kinds of tools or recommendations do you have for somebody who really needs to shift a story, whether it's my story specifically, or who really needs to shift a story around something that has been sort of defining them or part of their identity that has been hard to let go of?
In the Little Book of Woo Woo, one of my favorite life practices is the miracle purification bath. And the reason that I love this is because it really feels like you are letting something go. And the reason I call it the miracle purification bath is because you use salt. Salt is a natural cleanser, and you have to use sea salt and get the best sea salt that you can find, because sea salt cleanses and restores the chakras and the nervous system. And most of us are always in fear, flight, or freeze mode. So having a purification bath really allows you to connect to yourself at a deeper level. So it's really just creating a beautiful bath for yourself and throwing in a cup of sea salt and really staying in there and soaking in that and letting go. And 9 times out of 10, and you can still put all your can put your crystals, your candles, your special bubble bath and your juju, any of your special stuff in there. And then while you're in there, I release anything that is still in my body. I'm willing to release. I'm willing to be purified of any stories around money, any stories around who I am, about my body, about, what I've done in the past, because we beat ourselves up. Why don't we love ourselves for how far we've come, for the lessons that we've learned? And so having this purification bath is the process of really shedding that skin. And another one of just a quick one, if you're having in the middle of the day and you get some negative energy, or you're having, some type of thing, get some salt, rub it in your hands, wash your hands with it, even in your salt, make it like a salt scrub. If you even have a salt scrub, even better. Just wash your hands and you'll feel the energy shift within you, because salt is a natural cleanser. And so that is one of my favorite life practices that I like to share. And you can do those on new moons and full moons to really intensify that magic.
What is the biggest challenge that you have had to overcome in order to fully embody this role and this life that you're living right now?
Ooh, that's a good question, Andrea. And you know what it is? And I alluded to it a little bit before, and it was really expressing myself as a writer, expressing myself truly as a spiritual teacher, as a psychic medium, as a healer. And last year, I was fortunate enough to come out with the book, and it was an Amazon international bestseller. And the story I wrote is called Naked in Public. And it's perfect for your question. I was like, wow, this is really about that imposter that you were talking about. And it's Naked in Public is really about being that vulnerable you, exposing, sharing yourself and letting your light shine regardless of your flaws, regardless of your, mess ups and mishaps, and just still coming through that, even though. And then it's also about taking off that imposter mask, show your true self. And it's really more and more, Andrea, that like I said, when I didn't use the tarot cards and the psychic challenge, it's the same thing. When I allowed myself to be naked in public, when I allowed myself to be Tonya Gonzalez, the bruja, the author, and the light worker, is when it changed everything for me. And I stopped drinking alcohol because, again, that was something that dulled my senses. Then I was asking to increase them. And so it was really about telling myself I am truly ready to heal and be the woman, the psychic, the medium, the bruja that I'm asking to be. And I'll tell you, it has really changed my life in the last 2 years that I've stopped drinking alcohol.
Last question. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that we did not get to talk about in this seemingly so quick interview that just flew by?
You know, if you are wanting to connect to your energy, wanting to learn how to use your magic, just allow it to come through and don't be afraid of it. You know, that's the thing. The practice of loving ourselves is about trusting ourselves. And I do believe that we all have to go through that process of healing, even though the best of us, you know, even Oprah has a life coach. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so that means that everyone has to allow themselves to get some type of healing. And again, that's why I have the little book of Woo Woo, and I have the School of Bewitchery. And the School of Bewitchery is really about teaching you how to use your magic. Again, it's some prayers, it's spells, but it's also candles and crystals, but it's also spiritual coaching. It's mentoring. It's a mastermind. I'm going to, I share right now how to be a wealthy witch. And really what it is, again, is allowing ourselves to be prosperous, seeing prosperity not through money eyes, but through spirit eyes. We are already prosperous. Just look at how much we have instead of what we don't have. And so again, those are some of the ways that I love to work with people from all over the world, because I am all about service and serving and sharing and shining with as many people as I can.
That was tarot life coach Tonya Gonzalez. All of Tonya's links, including her Instagram account with the hashtag #BrownGirlsWhoTarot, and the Little Book of Woo Woo, Prayers, Incantations, and Spells, Love, Loot, and Life for Boss Brujas, Wealthy Witches, and Wise Women, can be found at thecreativeimposter.com/052. Are you thinking of starting your own podcast? Have you already started, but you're realizing that you're going to need a little bit of help? Well, as Coach Katie Flatto says, I can take you from where you are now to where you want to be. Visit podcastenvy.com to learn more about my podcast coaching and launch services. Or if you just want to dabble in the idea, get my free downloadable copy of 5 ways to expand your reach with podcasting at thecreativeimposter.com/magic. And if you haven't already, please go check out Power Your Story podcast. This is the podcast produced by a group of high school students mentored by me through a program of After School Matters in Chicago at Ray Graham Training Center. We are getting ready to launch season 2. So if you go find season 1 in your favorite podcast app, you can subscribe. And then when season 2 drops, you will be the first to know. We have some pretty cool stuff in the works. This episode was mixed by Edwin Ruiz of Mondo Machine. Our theme music is by Jovia Armstrong. And hey, are you a musician? I'm getting ready to launch a brand new podcast called Podcast Envy, all about the craft of podcasting, and I need theme music. Got an idea for me? I'd love to hear it. In the meantime, I thank you so much for listening, and I am wishing you a week filled with just a little bit of your very own brand of woo-woo witchcraft.